Matt W. from Ohio. I was watching some old Raws and pay-per-views, and one of my all-time favorites was Ken Shamrock. I believe he was before his time. As popular as MMA and UFC is now, and still relatively new when he came to WWE, do you think that if he debuted in more recent years coming from that world, he would have been a lot more popular and pushed further, possibly a championship run? And second, do you think he'll ever be in the WWE Hall of Fame? True, he never had a title run, but in my opinion, I think he is solely responsible for bringing tapping out to matches, which is still around today, and changing the way things are done, making submissions popular. Well, you are right on the tapping out part. I cannot remember WWF using the tap out for submissions until Shamrock came in. Before that, it was always, what do you say? What do you say? Do you verbally submit? And the ref would just kind of call for the bell. It was after Shamrock came in and was doing the ankle lock, that's when they started doing the whole tap-out deal. So all the fans of wrestling now who watch and they don't think twice about it, it's like, if you want to submit in a match, you have to tap out. It was never like that. It was never like that in WWF before 1997. People would tap on the mat all the time. They were banging on the mat, but that wouldn't count as a submission. That's kind of what... It's kind of weird now, because, like, if you're in a match and your opponent puts you in a submission hold, and your instinct is to just bang on the mat, even if you're just banging on the mat to kind of get yourself motivated to try to get out of the submission, that would count as a tap out. You would be tapping out. That's not how it used to be. So yeah, Shamrock is directly responsible for that. I was a fan of Ken Shamrock in WWF, and frankly, I think Bret Hart had a lot to do with his training. But when he came in, he was not a bad wrestler at all. I mean, you look at some of the other guys or athletes from other sports, from UFC, who came over to wrestling. Not all of them were that good. Shamrock was very good, I thought. Even from day one, he was very good. He got better. And he was also very athletic. I mean, Shamrock was a big dude, jacked up at like 265, 270, but he could do a standing Hurricane Rana. You know what I mean? John Cena tries a standing Hurricane Rana now, and it's amazing he doesn't break his neck on the way down. And you kind of look at him and you go, all right, well, John Cena's like a good dog. You want to just pat him on the head like, good boy, good boy, you tried, good boy. But Shamrock could do it, and it looked great. He was a hell of an athlete. I thought he was very underrated. He was a tag team champion. He was an intercontinental champion. I was actually at that Raw when he won the Intercontinental title for the first time. It was in a tournament. He beat X-Pac in the finals. Triple H had hurt his knee in that ladder match with Rock at SummerSlam 98, so he had to forfeit the belt. And yeah, I was in the Nassau Coliseum that night when Shamrock won the title. I think that was the same night that Austin poured cement, or as Jim Ross would say, cement in the Corvette, Vince's Corvette. I know, I'm a nerd for remembering this stuff. You know what the sad part is? I just spouted that off the top of my head. I remember the most minute of details from that one episode of Raw, which I'll do you one better. I'm pretty sure that was the October 12th, 1998 episode of Raw. Somebody go back and tell me if that was a Monday, because if it was, that was the date. If you asked me what happened on Raw 2 weeks ago or what happened on SmackDown, I couldn't tell you. Unless it was like the main angle on the show. If you said to me, who did Dolph Ziggler wrestle 2 weeks ago on Raw? I don't have a fucking clue. That's the difference between then and now. There's just so much more wrestling now. It's impossible. It's impossible. How could you possibly remember half the shit that happens these days? Anyway, Shamrock. In the Hall of Fame. I don't see it. It's the WWE Hall of Fame, so look, anybody can go in. I don't get the impression that Shamrock is on the best of terms with the company, but it's not like that stopped them from putting other people in before. I think if they went to him and said, hey, we want to honor you by putting you into the Hall of Fame, I don't think he would turn it down. And you can make the case for Shamrock more so than you can for some of the other people that are already in the Hall of Fame. I just don't see it. I don't see Shamrock being on their list of guys. So, no, I don't see Shamrock going into the WWE Hall of Fame. And had he come along now, would he be more popular? Would they give him the belt? I don't think they would. Brock Lesnar was a guy who came from the wrestling world. He was already a champion. He went on to become the biggest pay-per-view attraction in the history of UFC. So when he came in, it's a miracle they didn't put the belt on him right away. Brock is a special case. In the case of a Shamrock, I mean, let's look at UFC right now, okay? Some of the bigger names in UFC. John Jones. Let's just use John Jones as an example, okay? If John Jones came over to WWE today, do you think they would put the belt on John Jones? I don't. I would hope they would feature him prominently. They would find the right guy for him to work with, and they would they would work a realistic angle, not some comedy nonsense. But it's not like I see him coming in and being one of the top 3 main event guys in WWE. I mean, we're talking about WWE here. You got to factor that in, too. They're going to want to knock these guys down a few pegs. They're not going to want to bring them in and immediately shoot them to the top of the company. They're going to want to show them, hey, this is a new ball game here. You're going to have to work your way up. You're going to have to pay your dues. So I think if Shamrock came along now, it would be no different. If anything, it might be worse. I think WWE was more apt to push him at a higher level then than they would today. So I think, did he come along at the right time in terms of MMA's popularity? Probably not. But I think he ended up getting a better shot, a better shake in WWE back then than he would have if he would have come along today.